Grab your spandex and listen up, because we have an all-new season of American Horror Story, and Think Story is here to take a deep dive into each episode. I'm not going to waste any of your time, so let's get right into it.
5, 6, 7, 8!
We're in 1970, baby, at beautiful Camp Redwood, which, if you've seen the trailer, doesn't turn out so well. We're introduced to these two, who we saw in the trailer, and this dude and his lambskin condoms, because you never know when a girl will be allergic to latex. We hear the clanging of Mr. Jingle's keys, who we've seen from the trailer is supposedly the main bad guy this season. Yes, we can confirm that we're in the middle of camp season, and these teens are camp counselors. Notice also the grain in the film here, which isn't shown in the 1984 scenes. So if you ever see this grain, we're likely dealing with a flashback that mimics the style and feel of an old 80s slasher. We see this later on with the flashback of Mr. Jingles working at Camp Redwood. And as soon as this girl takes her top off, these two are dead, which is officially the worst cockblock ever. Here we get our first glimpse at the hand of Mr. Jingles and this sound of his keys, which we see here briefly. And here's a shot of me watching the final season of Game of Thrones. Now the creators make an effort to show Jingles cutting off this camper's ear. Serial killers have been known to take tokens of their victims, so expect these ears to come into play later on in the season. We also see the extent of the massacre and that Jingles walks with a limp. Now this makes sense since many of the early slasher villains like Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers walked very slowly, so making Jingles unable to run is keeping in line with that tradition. But what is most revealing about this scene is the exclusion of Leslie Grossman's character, who we saw in the trailer as being in that very cabin the night of the massacre. We'll meet her a bit later on as the owner of the camp, Margaret Booth. Now in my trailer video I theorized that her character is my #1 pick of being the real or surprise killer. And just this morning I got a message from Twitter user Cale Harden, who expanded on this idea that Jingles is actually coming back to exact revenge on Margaret and possibly to save the other campers. The theory goes that he was framed for the massacre and that Margaret was the real killer, and so far it's making a lot of sense. She's a religious nutjob who decides to reopen the camp where she almost died. Her affinity to remain pure and clean would also give her motive to kill the philandering teens at the beginning of the episode, which coincides with the plots of many 80s horror where a killer goes after horny teens. Now we have our look at the new intro titles, which can also give some interesting clues about the season. Notice the 4:3 aspect ratio, which is similar to those of VHS movies, and the 1980s music video style and retro graphics. We also get a few shots of the camp, but what I think is most revealing in this is the inclusion of the ear, but also of this ear with sound waves going into it. We've already seen that Jingles likes to cut off ears, so pay attention to this in episodes to come. Speaking of Jingles, we also get this quick shot of keys. And the 80s were huge with montages, so we get a quick 80s dance montage with our favorite son of Satan, who is looking more like the son of Richard Simmons. Here we get introduced to our main cast: Xavier, Montana, Ray, Chet, and Brooke. But it looks like both Brooke and Chet are going to hit it off. Montana remarks on Brooke ogling Chet's mound, as I suspected in my trailer video she might be into girls herself, talking about how great Brooke's butt is, but considering she used to date Xavier, it's likely she's bi. Brooke, however, isn't here to hook up. It looks like her character will be that of the stereotypical slasher virgin, a trope which I'm sure Ryan Murphy will hopefully subvert. In the lobby, Xavier remarks about the Stalker, a serial killer on the loose who apparently stabbed someone 40 times, almost decapitating his victim. Chet introduces himself to Brooke and she creams her pants. We learn that Montana, quote, rear-ended Xavier while in traffic, which is a very graphic double entendre. Xavier is a method actor who trained under the real acting guru Stella Adler, and Ray met Chet at a party where Justine Bateman was, who was an actual actress known for the 1984 show Tales from the Dark Side. Summer is going to be crazy in LA due to the Olympics, and Xavier suggests they all get a summer job as counselors a few hours away from the city, while Montana writes her number on Brooke's arm in case she's interested. While at home, Brooke removes her earring, yet another reference to ears, when she is later attacked by the Night Stalker. He somehow knows she has jewelry, and although his attempt at killing her is thwarted, he says, "I will find you, Satan will show me the way." Considering how much last season focused on Satan, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some crossover here. Also, considering how we know LA has a Satanist cult that was seen last season, who knows if they'll show up. Rather than stay at home with the Night Stalker still on the loose and knowing where she lives, Brooke ventures off with the gang and Montana gets a little close. We learned that Chet was about to be an Olympian when he was disqualified for drug use, and for you young kids out there, that's a Polaroid. I'm old. At a roadside gas station, we meet this lovely character, Ed, according to his name tag. And yes, he is Patrick Swayze's brother. Notice his ring of keys here, which Mr. Jingles will later take from him. Xavier checks his voicemail on the payphone with what appears to be a jealous ex-lover saying he's going to find him. Could Xavier's ex be the Night Stalker, which leads him to Brooke? While seemingly lost on the way, Xavier runs over this guy. But what's mysterious is the fact he says he can't remember his name. Now, we don't know if this is the result of him getting hit or if it happened prior, since as Xavier notes, he already had dried blood and cuts that happened to him before the accident. The hiker also says a menacing line, "You gotta believe me, I tried," so expect this to be expanded on later. The counselors arrive at Camp Redwood where we meet Margaret, and we're told that the kids are supposed to arrive in the morning. But first things first, they gotta get this hiker to the infirmary. There they meet Rita, who tells them she used to work at Hawthorne Hospital. Now, it might just be coincidence, but the Hawthorne School for Exceptional Young Men was where Michael Langdon was trained and where most of the events of Apocalypse take place. They lie to Rita, saying they found the hiker on the side of the road when they actually hit him. Margaret then shows them to their quarters. We get a few shots of the lake and an introduction to Chef Birdie, who was around when Margaret was just a camper. This is our first indication that Margaret was indeed a camper before she reopened the camp after, quote, "one bad apple ruined it," a reference to Mr. Jingles and the massacre. Margaret tells them that the girls shower in the AM and the boys in the PM, and we've already seen in the trailer someone peeping at one of the males showering, who I surmised, due to eye color, as being either Xavier or Matthew Morrison's character, who we'll meet in a bit. After Margaret shows them to their cabins, we learn that she's a religious zealot who fights, quote, "the Lord's fight against filth." She stood alongside Charles Keating, who was a real-life anti-pornography advocate famous for his crusade against Larry Flynt, and we learn her husband died leaving her with a fortune which she used to reopen the camp and make it a godly place for children to escape. Very convenient for her husband to die and leave her with all this money. Around the campfire, Rita tells the counselors about the Camp Redwood massacre, which happened 14 years ago, and we get a little bit of an origin story for Mr. Jingles, aka Benjamin Richter. Apparently he was a Vietnam veteran who collected the ears of his kills and became somewhat of a groundskeeper at Redwood when one day he snapped, murdering all the female counselors. There was one survivor, however, Margaret, who says through the power of Christ was able to leave her body while she was having her ear sawed off as to not make a sound. She hopes that by reopening Camp Redwood she can turn the dark memories she had into something bright and happy. The hiker awakens in the middle of the night and checks himself in the mirror to find out that he has also lost his ear. Now this has happened before Jingles' arrival, so there's obviously someone else perpetrating these acts. Brooke decides to check on the hiker, or so she says. I can't help but feel she's in that infirmary for a different reason. She's startled by the hiker, who tells her that the phone lines are down because it wouldn't be an 80s slasher if they weren't. And when she tries to comfort him, he seems confused that Camp Redwood has reopened. Back at the cabin, we're introduced to everyone's favorite Glee teacher, Matthew Morrison. He plays a character named Trevor, who was cut from a Jane Fonda video for being too distracting.
That thing was flopping around like a baby elephant's trunk.
It's skinny dipping time, and Trevor and Montana are already breaking Margaret's rules. They're interrupted by an impending storm and a pair of spooky headlights. Now, we haven't seen Jingles arrive yet. He arrives later when it's raining, so my guess is that this is someone else, likely Margaret, keeping tabs on them. We're then introduced to Dr. Hopple in what appears to be a scene straight out of 1978's Halloween, with a patient, Mr. Jingles, having escaped. 3 hours hours earlier he killed an orderly and escaped, taking his glasses and keys with him. We learned earlier that Ray is also an orderly, so it will be interesting if there is a connection here. Popple inspects the cell to find a newspaper clipping about the reopening of Camp Redwood, with Margaret's picture circled in blood. Jingles is going back to Redwood to put an end to its only survivor, or perhaps to seek revenge if the theory is correct. Back at the gas station, Ed works on a car, and take a look at these delicious hot dogs. And you know, if you're underneath a car in a horror show, this isn't gonna turn out well. Mr. Jingles completely destroys him and takes his keys. Also note that Jingles has killed 2 people so far and hasn't taken either of their ears as tokens. Chet goes full roid rage after seeing the opening of the Olympics and is pissed he isn't there. He throws a crushed beer can at Ray, who gets a massive cut, and Rita refuses to help because she's the worst nurse ever.
Nurse, little help?
I clocked out already. I'm here for the kids.
Brooke looks after Ray and they share a little moment here. So if we go by the horror trope that the virgin character will survive, it usually means her love interest is one of the first to go. So watch out, Ray. Brooke says she'll look for some iodine and bandages when she notices the hiker hanging out with the sound and image of what appears to be Mr. Jingles watching her. We don't see the perpetrator's face here, which leads me to believe we're dealing with the second killer, someone who is motivated to keep the hiker quiet. But this character has a limp, and you can hear the keys, so it's either one of 3 things. Margaret trying to keep in character, Jingles trying to save Brooke from the real killer, or I'm just thinking way too hard on this and it's simply Jingles trying to kill her. As Brooke runs, I love how it's juxtaposed with the lighting of the Olympic torch. She tells the other counselors what she saw, and when they go to investigate, they find nothing. Also, Montana has the worst shield ever. And look who's there to usher them back to their cabins, Margaret, who just so happens to be in a similar raincoat to Mr. Jingles. Brooke seems to be the only one noticing this phone ringing and wakes up Montana, who we find sleeps with a switchblade. You know that switchblade is gonna come back. Brooke ends up answering the phone when we hear the clang of Mr. Jingles' keys and see the arrival of the Night Stalker. This is accompanied by Brooke asking the person on the phone who it is, and if you listen carefully, you can hear the response, Satan. We know the Night Stalker is a follower of Satan, so this makes sense. That's it for my episode 1 breakdown, guys. I am super pumped about this season. I think it was a fantastic first episode. It set up a lot of stuff, but I want to hear what you thought about it in the thoughts below. Make sure to give the video a like and subscribe with the bell on, as I plan to do breakdowns of every episode. You can also follow me and send me theories to my Twitter @ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.